Hey everyone, just wanted to give a quick intro to this video. So recently I was lucky enough to sit down with Nick from Firefly Studios to talk about their new Stronghold game, Stronghold Warlords, which is coming out next year. I've been a big fan of the Stronghold series ever since the first back in 2001, so I'm pretty excited for this new entry. And I was really excited to talk to Nick about the game and just Firefly Studios in general. Overall, it was a really good interview, learned a lot of things about the game itself, as well as future projects and some older ones, which I think you guys will really like. Unfortunately, it was just an audio-only interview, so there's no video footage, but I will have some nice Stronghold gameplay in the background, as well as relevant footage for when we talk about Warlords and a few other things. Otherwise, feel free to minimize the tab and just listen away. I really hope you guys enjoy. I'll leave your feedback in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And of course, I'll see you all next time. Hey everyone, so today we've got Nick here from Firefly Studios with us. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with us, Nick.
You're very welcome. It's taken a couple of weeks for us to organise this.
It has. I remember I think I flicked you an email. It must have been straight after E3, so we're there finally.
Yeah, E3 feels far closer than it is in reality.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys are obviously very, very busy. So you guys are obviously, you and Firefly are obviously working on the latest Stronghold game, Warlords, which is going to be the first mainline entry since Crusader 2, which was, back in the ancient times of 2014.
Quite a while ago, yeah. We basically moved over to mobile in terms of Stronghold Kingdoms because we saw a massive opportunity there to do that. Going forward, because we have another MMO in development called Romans Age of Caesar. And the idea going forward is that if we release, because we've kind of got two main products, we've got like the Stronghold series, and then we've got our strategy MMOs. And the idea going forward is that now that we've done that on mobile, which as you said took a while, porting to mobile takes serious time, and figuring out who you should do at Apple and Google and all that kind of stuff takes a while. So, but yeah, the idea going forward is that all our MMOs would be sort of cross-platform, cross-play between PC and mobile. And then Stronghold is just on PC. So that took a number of years to do well because we've been doing PC games since, well, the guys have been doing it since '99. To switch over to mobile is actually quite a significant challenge, especially with a game that wasn't actually designed to be ported to mobile. So that took us a little while, and we've probably been working on Warlords in terms of like design and just assets, artwork, because those are kind of the first things that you usually start working on in the project. Since like 2016, I would say.
Right.
So like late 2016, I think we announced like Jan or December, like December 2017 or Jan 2018, that we were in full production. What that meant is that we'd finally got sort of coders onto the project. So yeah, that's kind of dev speak for we're finally actually sort of coding the game. We've been doing design work and making art assets probably like 6 months before that. So it's been developing for a while, but I can see from the outside we've gone quiet for a number of years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not inherently a bad thing either. Like, good things take time. So
yeah.
I mean, how does it feel coming back? Like with like you said, it has been a wee while with such like a big like headlining title.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so the mobile launch for Kingdoms actually went really, really well for us. It was bigger than the original PC launch on Steam, so we were kind of swept up with that for a number of years, and it meant that we weren't at Gamescom, we weren't at E3, we were kind of out of the main circuit a little bit, and we were doing kind of mobile events and mobile press and that kind of things. But it feels really, really good. I mean, the run up to E3 this year was definitely like, I wouldn't say a shock to the system, but it was definitely kind of a reminder of like, the hard deadlines of showing off a PC game. But it was the good kind of pressure. It wasn't, it wasn't crunch or anything like that. It was just good, good hard work that everyone wanted to do. And I think the main sort of bonus for me has just been the feeling of kind of, the morale of a new project, of a big new project kind of moving forward in the studio. So that's been really nice. It's been stressful. The good kind of stressful.
Yeah, and it must be great being able to like tell people about it finally, because I'm sure you guys have been getting questions about it since for years.
Yeah, well, like I said, we've been working on it for about a year and a half now. Maybe a little bit more than that. So the temptation for me, I've got one marketing voice in my head, which is like, tell people as early as possible about a new project. And then the other one, which is kind of like, in 2019, if you're going to tell people about a game, you need to be able to show it. So you need to be
for
able to show
sure.
gameplay. Unless you're announcing, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid 6 or
Gotta be a big name.
some crazy series that you can just kind of put a logo up on the internet, and the internet Reddit just goes crazy. So for us, there was a large temptation sort of from, I would say, summer last year to reveal it, but I'm glad I waited, because even the sort of small snippet that we showed at E3 was it was much better to do that than just kind of do like a CG trailer or a logo or something like that. So, but yeah, the temptation is always there, and was always there, and it's true for future stuff that we're working on as well, and it always will be, and that's just games, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's out there now. Now you can talk freely and not have to hold your tongue in every interview. So one of the biggest changes with Warlords specifically is its setting, right? Which is now the Far East rather than the classic Europe and Middle East with Crusader.
That's right.
What was it that kind of made you guys go in this direction?
So the kind of gestation of that came from the fact that we feel like East Asia has that kind of feudal. Other parts of the world had castles and that kind of stuff, but it usually comes later. We saw one guy asking about India as a possible setting the other day, and they have forts, but those forts were built, much later on in history. Asia kind of strikes us as the place with, and the Creative Assembly guys have talked about this in loads of Three Kingdoms interviews, but it has that kind of drama of the different characters, and that kind of Game of Thrones style backstabbery that people love these days. But for us, really, it's just got, the crucial thing is that it's got castles and it's got feudal history and hierarchical structures that didn't seem, are similar to the Middle East, are similar to Europe. You don't really get that kind of stuff in the rest of the world. A lot of the castles, for instance, in Japan, some of the time periods we're dealing with, they were just kind of wooden forts, but move forward like 300 years and they become proper, fully realized castles that were completely different from the ones in Europe. I don't know if you've ever been to Japan before, but
I haven't. Planned to.
You absolutely need to at some point. But if you visit one of the castles like Himeji or Osaka, and you're walking up the approach to the main keep, it's very, very different to Europe. In Europe, you'd have an outer wall. A siege would likely be won just through waiting it out, waiting for the people inside to starve or spreading some disease or something like that. Whereas in Japan, you had these amazing they're all almost like maze-like structures that basically locked attacking troops into killing zones after killing zones. And that to us is just really interesting, because in terms of making maps and one of the things that people love the most about the classic games was the ability to kind of build classic castles and then siege them, whether we built those ourselves and put them in the game or people built them on Steam Workshop or whatever. Just the idea of being able to kind of have those completely different style of sieges because of the different ways that fortifications were built. You have a bunch of stuff that was true for Europe and Asia, like siege towers and stuff like that existed, albeit slightly different. But that was at a time where there was no internet, there was no sharing of information. These things were just existing in isolation. So you got these completely different ways of thinking about sieging a structure. Or there's this one of our most famous units at the moment in the game is the Fire Oxen, which was I think it was called I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but the Siege of Dian somewhere in China. I think it was around sort of 12th century. And one of the generals just decided to light the tails of a bunch of oxen and have them just plow through the enemy line. And it's like you would never get that kind of stuff in Europe. we do something equally as stupid in European siege. We'd probably take a diseased animal carcass and throw it over the castle walls or something like that. But you get these two kind of parallel feudal societies existed in complete isolation from each other, and we just found it really interesting to kind of explore both how they sieged castles and how they defended them, but also the kind of structures that existed just in terms of the feudal economies. And it just doesn't feel like you get that elsewhere in the world at that time in history. Like, there are loads of different really interesting periods of history in the world, but you don't get that mix of fortifications, strongholds, castles, and also the feudal stuff and the economy and the societies that kind of feel like you need them in a Stronghold game. If you don't have certain parts of that, it wouldn't be a Stronghold game anymore. So it felt like the last kind of real life place we could explore that would still have that kind of Stronghold, the kind of ingredients that make a Stronghold game.
Very unique, for sure. Was there also like a bit of you guys wanting to make a point to do something maybe a bit different for a new game when compared to the older ones?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting because we've had a bunch of people who obviously, some people like the new setting, some people don't.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're just going to have to hope that people kind of trust us on that. But it's very easy to forget that like Crusader, which is easily our most popular title, was a completely new setting at the time. Had a bunch of half the troops were Arabic, they spoke Arabic. It was a setting that you hadn't really, I think there were a few games that had done this kind of thing before, but it was only until sort of Crusader Kings and that kind of stuff a bit later on that games started to really sort of visit the Middle East in that way, in that period at least. So that was a completely new setting for us, and similarly that was chosen because it had similarities in terms of fortifications and conflicts with Europe. It had some interesting gameplay mechanics in that you could only place farms on green land on oases, so it was a sort of gameplay challenge in that regard. So it's very much it's a similar shift really in terms of moving from Crusader to the Far East as from Europe to Crusader way back when. So for us, it's a kind of very similar change.
Yeah, cool. I think it looks really interesting. It's a cool idea to go for. So I'm a fan. So one of the big talking points about the new game is obviously the Warlord system, which is going to be a huge element because it's in the title, right? So it's going to be something big.
Yep.
So
there's times when design and marketing overlap really nicely, and you go,
they just come together.
It's communicated straight away in the title. It's good.
It's just perfect. So for those who don't know, a simple description would be fair to say that it's basically like a way to influence like smaller AI-controlled lords who are on the same map as you, right? So you can use them to gather resources or wage war on your behalf, for example. Would it be a fair way to...
Exactly. So it's actually an extension of a system we had in a previous game called Estates. So Estates would be very, very simple sort of sections of the map where you could move troops over there, take over the estate, and sort of get some simple resources coming in. This is basically, instead of it being a simple, keep with one or two buildings, it's its own castle with a warlord at the top of it. So the idea is that you can control that warlord either through, a similar kind of military tactic of just marching over there, standing next to him long enough, and then waiting for him to kind of, bend the knee, as it were. You can do so through diplomacy. And then other players can kind of try and prevent you from stealing their warlords, etc. But once you've controlled them, you can rank them up so they can do different things. But the general idea is that they can be used to send small armies across the map. They can be used to send you specific resources. They can be used to kind of like block out certain parts of the map and just generally kind of use them as a sort of simple AI sort of warlord on the map itself. And the idea is kind of it's introducing an element of grand strategy without going full grand strategy. So what would the sort of design goal for the project is that if you use the system well enough, you can just sit back and build your economy, and you don't have to hit the finger. You can just provided that the warlords on the map are all aggressive attacking warlords, and you can randomize them, etc., etc. So there may be maps when all the warlords are economy focused, and maps when there's a good mix of them, or maps when they're all sort of aggressive. So it depends really what skirmish mission you're playing or multiple mission you're playing. But the idea is that you could just sit back and command them and rule over them and have them kind of do your bidding for you. But it's interesting. I can't think of too many games that have done like grand strategy elements in RTS because it's hard. That's the kind of general idea of it. It's kind of a light grand strategy element kind of laid over the top of what is recognizably sort of Stronghold gameplay.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I mean, that's going to be present across like all modes, so like multiplayer, campaign, skirmish.
That's right. Yeah. So obviously in skirmish, we're going to have a big campaign that goes over 4 characters. But in those missions, the warlords would be preset. So we're balancing the missions around that, and each kind of mission is designed to give you a different sort of challenge. But in multiplayer, we'll have multiplayer and skirmish mode if you want to play against the AI. We'll have defaults in terms of what warlords are on each map. But if you want to just randomize them or swap them out, you can just customize them yourself, and you can choose which ones are present in each map. So hopefully that'll give people some you'll be able to play one map with one set of warlords and then the same map with another, and it could become a very different kind of game, hopefully.
Cool, that's super cool. So talking about the campaign, taking a bit of a step back. So I'm hearing in interviews you guys are, like you said, doing a kind of a mixed characters, right? So a few different characters. Is that kind of like one overarching like narrative, or are they kind of clearly split into their own stories?
So they're split into their own stories, but they follow chronologically.
Right.
So you begin with the earliest in terms of technology, in terms of timeline, and you move. I think it begins in sort of 3rd century BC and goes all the way through to the rise of the shogunate and the sort of the beginnings of the Mongol Empire, which is kind of around 12th. So yeah, they are distinct and separate in that regard, and each sort of section of the campaign will follow a character which has an actual conclusion to that character. So our Vietnamese heroic figure will unify northern Vietnam. Genghis will start doing what Genghis does. Our Japanese character will sort of form one of the first shogunates in Japan. So each part of the campaign will have its own kind of arc. But yeah, they will be distinct stories.
That's cool. I mean, is narrative like a big focus for the team for this entry, or is it more going towards setting up interesting scenarios, or both?
It's definitely a focus for us in terms of we're putting quite a lot into the kind of voice acting, in-game cinematics. We've done a hell of a lot of research when it comes to the campaigns themselves. I've done research around those campaigns to try and work out what we can do in our Discord in terms of a metagame and all this kind of stuff. So we're quite well versed in that part of the history as well. But we're definitely going for more of a kind of a historical angle this time around.
Right.
It won't be sort of made up characters. It will be real characters from history, and kind of telling their stories. But yeah, we're kind of doing as much as we can cinematically as possible for an indie dev, because we're still a pretty small team. So but yeah, it's definitely it's not what you get in Crusader, which would be just a massive trail of 50 plus missions. We're going for probably half that number in the main campaign, but more story focused, definitely, and more simple in the actual game itself.
So it's almost like a mix between like Crusader and like the original Stronghold, with the narrative and then split missions, but not nearly as many as in Crusader.
Exactly. Yeah.
So speaking generally about just the gameplay overall, you guys seem to be taking a lot more of like a slower, sort of more sim-focused approach to Warlords when compared to Crusader 2. Was that mainly down to player feedback, or something that you guys internally just kind of wanted to go ahead with?
I think there's historically there's been kind of a release cycle when it comes to Stronghold of a more RTS focused game, and then a more sim focused game, and then a more RTS focused game, and then a more sim focused game. So you've got obviously original Stronghold and Crusader, then you've got Stronghold 2, which is very sim focused, and then Legends, which is it had lots of great RTS control in it, but it was very much more sort of aggressive based. So it's kind of like the natural point for this game to be like that. But really, it's just down to us wanting to explore the different economies of the Far East and just seeing all the kind of gameplay potential in there. It's worth noting there'll still be quite a lot of siege action in the game. That'll still be a massive part of it to kind of take advantage of that part of the IP. But we're trying to find a really nice balance between sim and RTS. But yes, absolutely, moving on from Crusader 2, it'll be way more sim focused this time around, with Fear Factor, a bunch of other systems in the game that really allow you to kind of dig deep into the economy.
That's awesome. I mean, I imagine it's a very hard balance in finding kind of the perfect place between the two. So I don't envy your position.
No. City builders doing city builders on their own are hard enough. Doing a city builder with all the combat on top of that is a challenge. I think there's a reason why it's pretty much just like us and the settlers, and it's Cossacks, and a few other games that have really tried to do it, because it's really hard, especially. I mean, walls are definitely the hardest thing out of everything in there. Walls are just the hardest to do because, they're not just simple barriers. Troops fall off them, troops go under them. It's in terms of sort of CPU load and programming, it's quite a lot of work. So, yes, it's both our kind of most unique point and most recognizable kind of bit of gameplay for the series, but it's also one of the most challenging aspects in terms of dev.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, one thing that's been a sticking point for a lot of long-time fans, as I'm sure you've had this question a gazillion times, is the classic 2D versus 3D, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's pretty much impossible to go into a Stronghold video on YouTube and not see a debate.
Yep.
You know, this one's better, that one's better. Just like, you know, Stronghold's obviously been 3D for a long time now, for almost 15 years. Has ever been, going back to 2D, ever been like a consideration as maybe like a one-off? Obviously, Kingdoms was 2D, but as like a mainline title, or is that firmly something that's, you know, behind you and it's fully 3D from now on?
It's constantly in the background humming.
I imagine
the suggestion, especially from people who've been at the studio, because I've been here for like 7-8 years now, and anyone who's been here for like 5 to 10 years is aware of, you know, not only the kind of the fanfare we would get from doing something like that, but also just the commercial opportunity there. I mean, you know, it's insane how well, because before Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition was revealed, you know, because that game had a HD version on Steam, which obviously sold like 5-6 million copies.
Yeah, very well.
And before that was revealed, we weren't entirely sure about it because we'd already done Stronghold HD and Crusader HD, which have done really, really well for us on Steam and elsewhere. So we were kind of looking at that as like, okay, cool. AoE 1 Definitive Edition has been released, and that makes sense because there wasn't a HD version. But seeing the reception to 2 this year at E3, even though, you know, most of the people buying the Definitive Edition will probably already own Age of Empires 2 HD.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So just seeing the reaction to that has kind of, you know, has kind of opened up that possibility for us. But it's always been, you know, it's always been discussed, and it's always, you know, every now and then there'll be a lull between projects, and we'll do a little bit of sort of, you know, research into what that would be. But I think, you know, we'd have to do that justice, to sort of to meet the expectations of what people want from a game like that, in terms of, you know, the bar being Age of Empires and what is it, Forbidden Empires or Forgotten
Empires, I think. Yeah,
Forgotten Empires, that's the developer. Yeah. To kind of match up what they're doing in terms of like audio remastering, in terms of visuals, in terms of all the extra amazing features they're adding. You know, we'd have to kind of really invest some time in it, because we get a whole bunch of questions, people saying, oh, can you add achievements to, you know, Crusader Stronghold on Steam? And it's like, if we're going to do that, we're going to do the kind of full thing. So it's definitely always in the background. And we love 2D, and that's one of the reasons why with Warlords we've kind of 2D-ified the gameplay so much, because people just want that precision. I think that's the thing that people like most about the original, like Red Alert. I'm really looking forward to Petroglyph's Red Alert remaster.
Oh, me too.
But I think one of the main reason why people like this game so much is because everything is just so precise. You put a wall somewhere, it definitely works. You order a unit to go to a place, for better or worse, they go exactly to that spot.
Yeah.
And I've found, like, playing Age of Empires Definitive Edition recently, that, like, you know, I do, you know, people love that precision, and it's easy to underestimate how much of a part that is, you know, how much of a part that plays in why people love those games so much. So it's definitely always there in the background. But with Warlords, we are doing our absolute best to make it as 2D as possible, and kind of deliver those things that people love about 2D. But we hear people, let's just put it that way.
yeah, it would be hard not to, I guess. So many people. Alrighty, so I've got a bit of a hard-hitting question here for you.
Okay.
So Stronghold's had a bit of a, maybe not fully a rocky road, but some of the past releases, I guess particularly Stronghold 3, is probably the low point of the series for a lot of people. And Crusader 2 was definitely a step in the right direction in pretty much every single way. And I think over time people have really enjoyed Crusader 2. But I'm sure there'd still be a lot of fans who would agree that it didn't top the original, right? Which, you know, don't get me wrong, that's obviously very, very hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my question is, what are you guys and the team doing to kind of learn from previous entries to make sure that this is the best Stronghold game, like, yet, and also maybe regain the confidence of some of the fans who might have lost it over, you know, particularly Stronghold 3?
I do believe that for some people, unless the game is a 2D, you know, isometric, you know, Definitive Edition style title, though, for those people, it just won't be for them, and that's totally fine. And you know, we would hope to serve those people what they want eventually, in some shape or form. But when it comes to what people love about the original games, I've personally done quite a lot of work in drilling down to why people love the original style titles beyond just being, two-dimensional, beyond just being isometric, beyond having rose-tinted,
Yeah, beyond the nostalgia of playing it when you're at school.
Stuff that's totally valid. And there are a few things. So the first is one that our producer always mentions, which is humor. People absolutely adore the terrible Lancastrian, Liverpudlian, Geordie. We eventually ran out, and we had, and that was the reason why the axe throwers from Stronghold 2 were vaguely Nordic. But that's a large part of it, right? Like people remember the lines, people remember the voices, and they remember the humor. And some of that humor can be delivered in, the fire oxen or catapulting diseased animals. And other parts of that is intrinsically linked to, we set a game in England and took the piss out of ourselves.
Right, for sure, yeah.
So we're doing absolutely everything we can. And we have to be a little bit careful with Warlords because we're dealing with somebody else's culture, not our own. Like,
it's not that easy.
Brits are self-deprecating in our humour, and that's fine because we're taking the piss out of, my uncle's from Lancashire, so I can laugh at a Lancastrian accent. But I think the challenge there really is separating what can and can't be done in a 3D game set in Asia and what can't be done. And I think there is actually quite a lot that can be done. The humor is still being written by the same people who wrote it, for the original titles, meaning Simon, our lead designer. So that can be brought across. The Fire Oxen has made people laugh in pretty much every demo we've run so far. So we can bring across those kind of elements of the humor, and that's incredibly important. And again, for some people, it just won't match up to the originals for whatever reason. But there's a huge opportunity to bring that humor across, and I think that's one kind of major part of it.
Right.
Second is, like we were saying before, the control, the precision. So we did a video on the sort of changes we're making to troops and the walls recently. So for the walls, we're literally trying to get it as close as possible to the kind of, the feeling of building and the precision of building and the clarity of understanding how many resources you need and all that kind of stuff from the original titles. I think Stronghold Legends came really, really close to that in terms of, matching up to the original, matching up to, what people liked about that. With the troops, we're doing a lot to resolve issues that were even in the original Strongholds. I think these days, if you had an RTS where you've got 10,000 troops on the screen and they're all walking in a single line, people would be so forgiving. So, we're also trying to make improvements over them. But it's about kind of lifting, like looking at what people are saying, and and I'm in marketing, so this is kind of my job as on sort of product management side. Because these days, good marketing actually informs the product and helps the development team rather than just kind of existing apart. Which is one of the things I like about Firefly, just being in the middle of the creation process. But we got to look at like what people are saying and what they actually mean by it, because a lot of the time when we speak about films we have mixed opinions of, or a beloved sequel to a book series you loved as a younger person, we find it quite hard to articulate what we actually want. We may know what it needs, but it's up to the kind of the creators to really look at what people are saying and sort of dig down into what that actually means, and why people loved Stronghold and Crusader beyond just because they were 2D. That's that is an answer, but it's it doesn't,
not a very helpful answer.
No, exactly. And for a new 3D game set in Asia, it would be very easy just to give up and go, oh, it's so different, we can't possibly please those people. But that's wrong. People love the Scribe. People love Siege Towers. They love Ladderman. They love again, the Scribe. The Scribe is like literally our most popular character in the game. I keep telling.
He's coming back, right?
Yes. Well, his Eastern cousin will be will be
for
coming.
Sure.
But,
It would seem a bit out of place if it was the original Scribe.
yes, exactly. So so we're kind of doing everything we can to bring that across. But it's a massive challenge to drill down into what people actually mean by what they say, and
definitely
that's no fault of theirs, I don't think at all. I think that the onus is on the creators to kind of figure out what people actually mean when they say I miss X, Y, or Z, and But yeah, doing everything we can to bring back what.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I mean, it sounds you guys are definitely like, aware of, what people are saying and trying to figure out like really what it is people want. So that's really cool to hear.
It's just interesting talking to people and hearing what they think is a quintessential Stronghold feature, and how, for years that for them that could be, things we'll notice like the humor. Obviously we're aware of that and fans are aware of that. But stuff like the scribe, it may not be apparent to a lot of the developers upstairs that is such a core part of our identity. But when you announce it and you talk about it, everyone's like, oh my God. And it's just like, okay, cool. We've clearly missed the trick here before.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so let's move on to the quick fire ones here to end this off. So some of these are from some of the members of our community Discord. So okay. For those listening, you'll know who you are if you've asked these. So starting off, sieging is obviously a huge pillar of the combat of Stronghold, and we've talked about it a bit already. Is there any cool new siege equipment that you think people will particularly like coming to Warlords?
Yes.
Yes, and?
Did you want like quick answers or?
Quickish. If you've got a specific siege equipment, then I'm sure people would like to hear it.
If people like the fire oxen, there's more on that front coming.
Awesome. That sounds very fun. So for the choice of Lord, so Crusader, you can choose your Lord, right, in multiplayer or skirmish.
Yep.
Is that going to return? And if so, are they going to have like unique stats or maybe abilities, or are they just going to be visually distinct?
We're keeping the Lords just visually distinct and with no kind of abilities of their own, because we just don't want to overcomplicate things. We're adding quite a lot in terms of smaller touches that people have been asking for, in terms of kind of core RTS features that we think the series would benefit from. But when it comes to attributes, there's so much going on with the Warlord system and there's so much going on in your own economy, in your castle, that we just don't want to kind of overstuff the gameplay in that regard. But yeah, you'll definitely still be able to kind of choose your cosmetic Lord as well.
Cool. Awesome. Will there be a co-op free build mode?
There will be a free build mode.
Yep.
Co-op was in Crusader 2, so we're definitely we're still pre-alpha, as we've said before. So we're kind of at the stage where we are deciding which features carry across from Crusader 2 and which ones don't. So things like strong walls definitely going to be in the game. Co-op, I would imagine it would still be in the game. But yeah, we're not really at the stage yet where we're kind of figuring that stuff out yet. But hopefully.
Cool, no problem. So a lot of something people liked a lot from Crusader 2 was the ability to make maps and share them on Steam Workshop. Is that going to be coming back with Warlords?
Yes. So we're actually hoping to, because with Crusader 2 we released the workshop, I believe, early December, and we released sort of late September. So that was a good few months after launch, which isn't good for the game, because by that point your active players have dropped off significantly enough that the kind of potential for workshop and the potential for user-generated content's much less than it would have been otherwise. So this time around, we're definitely going to get it at launch. I would personally like to get it in there before launch, so that people can start making maps, ahead of launch, and at launch, therefore have a whole bunch to download straight away. But yeah, definitely at launch, and hopefully in the run-up to launch, so people can start making various famous Japanese castles and Chinese fortifications.
Cool, awesome. Is there going to be a beta for Warlords? And if so, how can people apply for that?
So, beta is definitely something that we want to do this time around. What kind of form that takes, I'm not entirely sure. Because we always take single and multiplayer demos to Gamescom, to PAX, all these kind of places. And afterwards, we're always sitting there thinking, the reception at the show went down so well. Why don't we just kind of share this with other people? So
put it live.
Yeah, I mean, and it depends, because doing a proper beta, because a lot of companies use the term beta these days, and what they actually mean is demo.
It's not a real beta.
So it comes out a week before the game releases. No beta is gonna, no work can be done in a game in a week before it comes. No meaningful work, at least. So it depends what we're talking about here. There's been a few ideas banded around. Like, one would be to use it as a kind of a multiplayer stress test, very, very close to launch. Another would be to do it earlier on, and to, if we're struggling with a particular design aspect, use that as the focus of the beta. But I think there's a good chance that we'll make one of our sort of show demos readily available online, because if we're confident enough to show it to 100 people, we should be confident enough to show it to 1,000 people. I would definitely say that the avenue for getting involved with that would be to join the official Stronghold Discord, which is coming soon.
Cool.
Definitely by Gamescom you'll be able to join that. So I would say join the official Discord, as if we were going to sort of recruit players for a beta, that's where we'd do it, I think.
Awesome. Cool. So I know you guys just kind of like vaguely talked about like future entries past Warlords and Stronghold. So
it's going to stress me out talking about anything other than Romans and Warlords at the moment, but go on.
I'll keep it vague. So are there plans to one day return to classic medieval England as was the setting for the original games?
I think that's kind of, in Simon's mind at least, that's kind of a foregone conclusion that eventually we would do that. That's not to say at all that it's kind of solid plans at this moment. We've got a bunch of really, really exciting possible avenues for the series. Like you were talking earlier about things that I wish I could talk about. I really wish I could talk about. So there's a whole bunch on that front that we're planning, and there are a number, I'll say, of different directions that we could go with it. But if you're a Stronghold fan sitting there and you're thinking, I just want to go back to medieval England, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Simon's got that, whether that's the next game or the one after, Simon's got that pretty firmly, in his mind. So I wouldn't worry about that. You stick with the series, and we'll deliver whatever you want from the series. Stick with it, and we'll deliver it at some point, I think.
It'll be there. All right, now this might come as a bit of an oddball, unrelated to Stronghold. But do you guys have any plans, or if not plans, any desire to go back to Space Colony?
It's funny you ask that. So we did a Steam edition of Space Colony like a number of years ago now, and it actually did quite well. We've got like a few quite vocal fans of the game in the office. It's a weird one, because it feels like when it came out, it was it's published by an external publisher who kind of pitched it a little bit as sort of the Sims in space. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was on the original box. Like, they took a quote from someone who'd called it Sims in space, and it literally had, like, if you take the Space Colony box art and the original Sims box art, they've just copied it straight. I'm pretty sure one character in the middle with a bunch of sections with a bunch of different characters around them. Yeah,
definitely not an accident.
No, and it really wasn't that at all. It was quite an intense base builder with some elements of humor and some sort of light sort of social elements, but it was really kind of Firefly moving over and doing a builder. I think there's more of a chance of us releasing a game that is a builder than there is of us going back to Space Colony. We are, we self-publish at the moment, we own the rights to it, so we could totally do it at some point. And knowing Simon and the rest of the company, I would definitely say never. But there's definitely a desire to go, from a few sort of key team members internally, a desire to go and do a pure builder game, just because those are the aspects that quite a few of us enjoy of most of the games. One of my favourite parts of Stronghold 2 is the fact that you can just go and do a peace campaign. And you can just go and play the game economically. And I think it was Legends also that had an economic war multiplayer mode, which I really enjoyed. So I really like that side of things, and I really enjoy the builder side. So there's definitely a desire to go that way. But Space Colony 2, it could happen, is what I'll say.
I'm sure any word on Space Colony
is... It could happen. We'd probably have to update some of the characters for the sensibilities of 2019. But
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely it's definitely a possibility up there, so, for sure. I've got a soft spot for Space Colony because the main theme was done by Chromio, which are one of my.
I saw that.
Yeah, so I'm a big Chromio fan. So if we're doing Space Colony 2, I'm going to call Chromio up and get them involved. They're probably too big now to be worried about this kind of thing, but I'll try.
Maybe they've got a soft spot for it too.
Yeah.
All right, last here, but certainly not the least one. Who is your favourite original Stronghold villain, and why is it Duke Beauregard the Snake?
So original Stronghold. So we're talking about the first game, or we're talking about just all the Strongholds?
First game, so the 4.
I would say the real villain of the original Stronghold is the Scribe. Because sometimes
okay.
when he's got that expression on his face and he's not happy with you and your economy is falling apart, I feel more adversary with the Scribe than I do with any other character in the game. I mean, there's a colourful cast of characters in each title, and I think Stronghold 2 doesn't get enough love in terms of some of the characters that were in there. But I would say original Stronghold. I definitely hold. My biggest rivalry is with the Scribe, and in some of the harder missions, that look on his face when he's not happy with it, just sort of seared into my memory.
Excellent answer. All right. Well, thanks, Nick. Thanks for taking the time to sit down and chat about Warlords. It sounds like you guys are really giving it your all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was really fun. It was a nice break in the maelstrom of event organisation that I'm doing at the moment. So I appreciate that.
I imagine it's chaos right now.
Yeah, no, it's just lots of deadlines for 3 or 4 different things at the moment. So it's all hitting at the moment. So
yeah,
it's good busy though. It's good busy.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, is there anything you'd like to say to the people watching, how they can find more information, support the game, anything like that?
The best possible way to support the game is to wishlist it on Steam, honestly. That gives the game, the best possible chance of success, regardless of whether they buy it at release or later on in the sale. Wishlisting is massively important to indie devs, so that would be number one. I would also say keep an eye on our social channels over the next couple of weeks and join the Discord. We'd love to have you as part of that, and all the weird and wonderful things that I've got planned on the Discord side will be entertaining, to say the least.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again, Nick. I'm hoping I can find my way out to a PAX or a Gamescom one day. We can have an actual interview. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always wanted to go. I don't suppose you've ever been over to PAX Australia?
I haven't actually, but I've definitely thought about it.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go down there for that. I've never been to Oz, so yeah.
Hopefully, there you go.
Yeah, we're always at various PAXs. We've done PAX East like the last couple of years. PAX West we're doing next month. Oh God, it's this month. It's not even next month. Yeah, so PAX is probably the best bet. It's kind of our favourite show in terms of pretty much everyone that goes there is a really just nice PC gamer.
Right.
And a lot of the other shows you attend, everyone's more console focused, or they're not really aware of what it's like to be an indie dev and all this kind of stuff. So PAX is definitely our favourite show, I think.
Awesome. Cool. Well, again, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for sitting down, and all the best for the future and the release next year.
All right, cheers, man. Take care.
Thanks. See ya.